Okay, hello students. Today we are working on compound, inequalities, conjunctions. So what that means is, what does the word compound mean? Compound means more than one, right? More than one. Inequalities, we know what inequalities means, right? It means not equal. And conjunctions means we write them together. Now make sure you're writing this down on your paper or notebook with your pencil, right? So the first note that we see here, and let's see what color we're going to use. Let's use red. The first note that we see, it says combination, right? So we're going to think of combination. Well, how do you combine things? When you combine things, it means that you add them together, right? You add things together when you combine them. And when you combine things, what you're doing is you're bringing things together. Together. So these two words are key words. Oops. Trying to use a highlighter. Green. These two are key words. Add and together. We're going to hear those two words a lot in these kind of problems. So let's try our first example here, right? So first thing we have to do is we have to read the instructions, right? The instructions say solve each compound inequality. Solve. Nowhere does it say graph, right? It doesn't say graph. So we're not going to graph. We're only going to solve. All right? So let's go to this first problem here, and we're going to read it. And we're going to say A divided by 38 is less than 1. And negative 26 plus A is greater than negative 52. So this actually has two problems in one. So let's solve those two problems in one, right? So we're going to take them one at a time. So first we're going to say A divided by 38 is less than 1. Okay, that's one problem. I'm going to draw my line here to separate. Next, I'm going to do my second problem, which is negative 26 plus A is greater than negative 52. So those are our two problems and I know I have two because it says and, right? When you say and, you talk about more than one thing, right? Apples and oranges. Those are two things, right? Lakers and Dodgers, right? Two teams. So two. Okay. So let's solve this first one here first. So I see this as A divided by 38. So the opposite of dividing by 38, actually, what did I forget to do first? My line of separation, right? So now the opposite of dividing by 38 will be multiplying on this side by 38. So I'm going to cross out 38 here, and I'm going to multiply by 38 on the right. So I'm going to bring down my A. That looks like a 9. Let me pick a better A. Right? Now, I did not multiply by a negative. This is a positive 38. So, since I did not multiply by a negative, this arrow is going to stay the same. And 1 times 38 is 38. There we go. So that's our first solution, right? And, right? Let's not forget, it says and. So now let's do this one now, right? So let's draw our line of separation. So I want to solve for A A is what I'm solving for, so I'm going to bring my negative 26 over, and I'm going to write it as positive 26. So negative 52 and positive 26 are not the same signs, so I have to subtract them. 52 minus 26 is 26. And it's a negative 26 because 52 is negative and it's bigger. And since I did not divide or multiply by a negative, my arrow is going to stay the same. And that's my second answer. So what I want to do now, everybody, is I want to write this answer together. See? Here's this word again coming up. Together, right? I want to write it together. So let's write it together. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at both of my answers here, 38 and negative 26, and I'm going to say, which one is bigger? Is 38 bigger than negative 26, or is negative 26 bigger than 38? Of course, we know that 38 is bigger, right? It's a positive number. This is a negative number, so 38 is bigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this answer here, and I'm going to write it down right over here. So I'm going to say A is less than 38. So now what I want to do is I want to bring this guy and put him right here so they're together. So I already have A. I don't need to bring A down, but I do need to bring down this arrow. But guys, when this arrow comes down, I have to flip the arrow. So I'm going to flip the arrow, and now negative 26 just comes down over here, and I'm going to write it negative 26. And this is my final solution right there. So that means that any number, guys, between positive 38 and negative 26, any number in between those two numbers will be a solution for these two inequalities. And that's what you guys just did. Perfect. So let's do another example here. So I see that it says and again, right? And so I got to do two problems, right? So my two problems are, let's change a color here. The first problem is 32 plus m is less than 31, right? And m over 16 is greater than negative 2. See, those are my two problems. So let's solve this first problem first. So I'm going to draw my line of separation here. I'm going to bring down my m. I need to bring this 32 over and make it negative 32. So I'm going to cross out 32 and make it negative 32. So 31 minus 32 are not the same sign, so I subtract 32 minus 1 is 1. And it's a negative 1 because 32 is bigger and 32 is a negative. And since I did not divide by a negative or multiply by a negative, my arrow is going to stay the same. So here's my first solution. Okay. So I'm going to do my second problem now. I'm going to bring down my line of separation. So this says divided by 16. So the opposite of dividing by 16 is multiplying by 16. So I'm going to bring down my m. So since I am not multiplying by a negative 16, see, this is a positive 16, I do not flip the arrow. So a negative times a positive is a negative. 2 times 16 is negative 32. Negative 32. And those are my two answers there. Look. Look at that. Those are my two solutions. Now, I look for which one of these two numbers here, these two solutions, is bigger. Is negative 1 bigger, or is negative 32 bigger? Now, these are tough, right? It can be tough because they're both negative, but if both numbers are negative, which one is closer to 0? Negative 1 is closer to 0, right? So negative 1 is bigger. So that means that I'm going to bring down this guy, and I'm going to write it down over here. Exactly the way I see it. M is less than negative 1. So now I want to write this one here with it together. Remember? Together, our key term, which means conjunction, right? Conjunctions mean together. So remember, I'm going to bring my arrow over, but I got to flip it. So I'm going to flip that arrow, and I'm going to bring negative 32 over. Negative 32. And this, everyone, is my solution for that problem. See? Look at that. Those are my two examples of problems that have and. See? And this one also has and. Right? Look at that. Perfect. Now, let's do a different type of problem. I'm going to show you. Look at this one. It says, solve each compound inequality. Again, it only says solve. No graphing, right? We're not going to graph. Okay? So let's take a look at what this one looks like. Well, look at that. This one kind of looks like this answer. Look. It's together. It's together. Look at that. The only problem is, look, this guy's in the way. I only want a variable in the middle. I only want n here by itself. So look at what we're going to do. We're going to move 17. Let's move this 17. Let's move this guy. So this is a positive 17, so I'm going to move 17, and I'm going to bring it over as negative 17. But I can't make this 28 jealous. I got to give him minus 17 too. Minus 17. So look what comes down by itself. N. I did not divide by a negative or a positive. So this arrow comes down and this arrow comes down. And now a positive 11 and a negative 17 are not the same signs. So 17 minus 11 is 6. And it's a negative 6 because 17 is bigger and 17 is a negative. And here, 28 and negative 17 are not the same signs. So 28 minus 17 is 11. And a positive because 28 is bigger and 28 is a positive. And that, guys, is my solution right there. Look at that. Right? Look at that. And now one more example here, right? Again, it almost looks like, look, this almost looks like this one right here. But M is by itself here. M is not by itself here. I got to move this guy right there. So let's remember what negative 5m means. Negative 5 times m, right? Negative 5 times m. So what is the opposite of multiplying again, guys? Dividing. So if I cross out negative 5 here, I'm going to divide by negative 5. But again, remember, we can't make this guy jealous. I got to give 65 the same divided by negative 5. Right? So my m comes down, but I'm dividing by a negative, guys. That means that this arrow has to flip. So I'm going to flip it and go like that. And I divided by a negative here also. So that means that this arrow has to flip. So negative 55 divided by negative 5 is positive 11. And positive 65 divided by negative 5 is a negative 13. Right? Now, you may think, we're done, mister. But wait a minute. Let's take a look at all the other answers. 38 is bigger than negative 26, and it's on the right. Negative 1 is bigger than negative 2, right? Always on the right is the bigger one. Okay. Positive 11 is bigger than negative 6. Okay, that looks right. But wait a minute here. Negative 13 is for sure not bigger than 11. So we're going to flip it. We're going to mirror it. We're going to write a mirror. So if we write our mirror here, remember? We're going to write our mirror, then everything is going to change. So negative 13 is going to go first. My arrows are going to change. And 11 goes last. Now it's correct because 11 is bigger than negative 13. And that, guys, is compound inequality conjunctions. Make sure that you write all your notes and you have all the examples so you can answer all the questions in the video lesson.